So a few months ago, I got an email from one of you saying, I'm struggling with an eating disorder and people have been telling me to just pray harder and pray it away. And that made me so angry because I think we hear stuff like this a lot in some Christian circles, and it's just not true, but it can leave us feeling like we're trapped in shame and this sense of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not a good enough Christian. If I trusted God more, I wouldn't be struggling. And those things are just lies. And so I want to talk today about 4 myths that we often hear in some Christian circles about mental health. And I want to share why I believe they're myths. I'm hoping this video can just set you free from shame and free to find healing in whatever that looks like for you. So, hey friends, my name's Tiffany. My daughter Natalie's down here playing, and this channel is all about helping you have healthy relationships, including healthy relationships with yourself in your mental health. And so you can hit subscribe to see more videos like this. Today's video is sponsored by Faithful Counseling, which is an online Christian counseling platform. You can access them anywhere in the world, and I have a link in the description below. I'll tell you more about them later. So myth number 1 is that your mental health struggle is just a spiritual problem. The only cause is spiritual. Now, it is true that our spiritual life plays into our mental health, but there's also other things that play into our mental health. My dad likes to say that being healthy is like a stool. You've got the 3 legs of the stool and they all have to be balanced. So like spiritual life could be one of those legs, but then there's your physical body, and then there's your emotional side. I would also add in your environment, because a toxic environment totally impacts how you feel mentally. So for example, when I was struggling really bad with postpartum depression after having my daughter, the cause was because my hormones were totally out of whack after giving birth. And so it was a physical issue. Also, my environment, I was living in a small apartment and it was dark out because it was winter. Those things all played a huge role in how I felt mentally. It wasn't a spiritual problem at all. It was a lot of other things playing a role. So if you want to be healthy mentally, yes, you need to be healthy spiritually, but you also need to consider your physical body, your emotional self, your environment. And that brings me to myth number 2, which is your feelings are not important. I think we hear this a lot in the church, this idea of almost belittling how we feel. And it's true that we can't live by just our feelings. It's true that we can't take our feelings at face value and say this is the absolute truth about how life is. But at the same time, we have to pay attention to our feelings. We have to acknowledge them and use them as important hints for how we're doing. Our feelings emotionally are just like our feelings physically. So if you're feeling physically too hot or too cold, you know you need to change something to be the right temperature. If you're feeling physical pain, it's a sign that's like, okay, something's wrong here. I need to figure out what's going on in my body. In the same way, how you feel emotionally and mentally is so important to pay attention to, because they're clues. They're going to help you know if you're healthy or if you're not mentally. Myth number 3 is my least favorite myth, which is you can just pray it away. You have a mental health problem, just pray harder. Just trust God more, you can pray it away. Like, I'm sorry. No. There are sometimes situations and people who that works for, but most of the time it is not something you just magically pray away. God made us complex humans. There are a lot of things to consider. So for me personally, with my anxiety, in order to feel healthy and whole with my anxiety, there are a bunch of factors that come into play. I have to be working out every day. If I'm not, my anxiety plummets. I have to be eating enough protein and healthy fats or my anxiety plummets. I have to be seeing my counselor regularly or my anxiety plummets. There are a lot of factors involved. And recently, I started taking medicine for my anxiety, and I'd always been terrified to, because I was so anxious that I was gonna react negatively to anxiety medication, but I'm so glad I started on it because it's made a huge difference as part of a treatment plan, not the only thing I'm doing. So I wanna tell you briefly about Faithful Counseling. They're the ones sponsoring this video, and I have an affiliate link for them in the description. So Faithful Counseling is an online platform. Every counselor is Christian. They're also fully accredited, and you can choose how much you want your faith involved in the session. Anywhere from incorporate every Bible verse you can to keep it strictly clinical. And you can meet with them from anywhere in the world because it's all online from your phone or your laptop. And you can also be in touch with your counselor in between sessions. So it's a really cool company. I'm so excited about this resource for you. You can check them out at the link in my description. That link can get you 10% off your first month. And you can also apply for financial aid. So the last myth, myth number 4, is that God will be honored when I'm healed. That healing is like the epitome of God working in my life. And that's true, that when we are healed, God can be honored in that. But it's also true that when we're in the midst of our struggle, trusting Him year after year, pushing through year after year, sometimes that's when we have to trust God the most, and sometimes that's when God is the most glorified in our life. It's gonna look different for every person, whether He just heals you or whether He calls you to walk through it with Him. But either way, God can be honored. And so I want to share my story with you and how God has not just set me free overnight. Instead, He's called me to walk through these things, slowly grow, slowly heal, and trust Him in the midst of it. So you can check out my story at this video linked up above. So I love you girls. Check out Faithful Counseling, and I'll see you in that next video.